Hello, everyone. It looks like my PowerPoint is having some trouble getting going here. Let me see if I can get it there. There we go. All right, not sure why that happened. Anyway, so welcome to week 5 as we are working our way through chapter 3 in the textbook. And this chapter is on cognition. And as we move forward in the chapter, what I want you to really think about is how does our cognition, our intellectual development, tie to our language development? How are the two connected? There's going to be lots of ways that you will start to see some of those connections as we move through this. And I want you to ask yourself the question of, does a limit in cognition limit our language? And does limits in language limit our cognition? And then let's move forward and see where your mind or your thoughts take you on that. So as you move into the chapter, you're going to encounter two people, Vygotsky and Piaget. We're going to focus our attention on Jean Piaget, and for the purposes of this course, I don't want you to spend too much time worrying about the information on Vygotsky. Certainly is there for you to read, but Jean Piaget is going to lay the groundwork for us. He is a child prodigy, or was a child prodigy, who gained his early degrees in his either late teens or early 20s. And he was a person who wore many hats. He was originally a biologist who did studies on mollusks. He is thought of as a psychologist here in the United States, and he was by trade a genetic epistemologist. So he studied how we learn, or how we acquire information. His greatest contribution that we're going to talk about for the purpose of this class is his development of the theory of cognitive development, and that theory has 4 stages. Why is it important? Well, even though research has shown us that some of the generalities, or I should say some of the very specifics that he came up with regarding age ranges and acquisition of information has been thought to be a little bit incorrect, or we've at least broadened our ideas of how language and cognition are developed. Jean Piaget did a great job of laying the groundwork of understanding for us of what's happening in those early years of life. So his theory of cognitive development has 4 stages. It has the sensory motor period, the pre-operational period, the concrete operations, and formal operations. The age ranges that we associate with each of these stages are generalities. We are not saying that these are ages that are set in stone or that are true for everyone. These age ranges are just generalities of when approximately young children go through the development seen in each one of these periods. They actually overlap quite significantly, and you can't really talk about pre-operational stage without also talking about the things that occur in the concrete stage. You can't really talk about the sensory motor period without also talking about some of the occurrences in the pre-operational stage. There are 4 basic principles of what's happening as children start to develop cognition, start to develop their organization in thinking. Those basic principles are schema or schemata, assimilation, accommodation, and equilibrium. Schema is your ability to organize information. It's how you take information and categorize everything that you see. So when you were young, you learned some simple categories like things you play with, things you wear, things you eat. It was by function. You learned to categorize information by what things could do. And that's called by function. As you mature, you start to give those groups names. And so you start to name things food, clothes, toys, versus what they do for you or what they can do. You start to give them their own identity. And so you are developing your schemata. Schemata tend to start rather broad and become more and more specific with age. Assimilation and accommodation are the processes that we either choose to assimilate, make similar. We look for things that are similar and put them in similar categories, or accommodate, have to get new accommodations, have to find a new place for them because they don't fit similarly with any other schemata we have. Equilibrium is the process, the balance that we have to create in doing that. You can't create, you can't accommodate every new thing you run into in life. You can't see a new object you've never seen before and always create a new schema. You do have to look or go through a process of how much similar is this, or how similar is this to an object or group of objects I know, and how unsimilar or dissimilar is it to a group of things that I know. And it's through that process, equilibrium, that you either assimilate, add to categories you already have, or accommodate, add to categories that are new, or create categories that are new. As I said earlier, categories start very large and imprecise, and then they become more and more defined. So what a child will look at as butterfly, we might categorize into butterfly or moth. We might categorize into dragonfly or butterfly. But our reasoning, our ability to know what's in that schema or in that schemata is more precise than that of a child. When we teach children who are language impaired, we find this to be one of the crucial skills that they are missing. And why do you think it might be important to teach a child categorization? Well, think about when you're learning in school. If you're studying the colonies, the 13 colonies, or you're studying the Civil War, or you are studying the states of the United States, or you're studying the scientific process, you have to group the information that you have about that topic into one area. If you do not organize your information, then that's just creating a new schema for every single word, every single concept. And it's impossible to retrieve the information. You can't pull the information back out if it's so poorly organized. If you think of a recipe book and there's no glossary, no index, and all your recipes are put into that book, the recipes may be there, but your ability to access them is extremely limited. And that's true for a child with language impairment. A lack of ability to organize information creates a situation where they cannot retrieve what they need to share. So let's talk more specifically about each of these areas. The sensory motor period. In the sensory motor period, behaviors are reflexive. We learn through, or Piaget says, we learn through touch, taste, and smell. So it's why babies put everything in their mouth, all right? It is why they explore the world with their hands. They explore things through their senses. Cognitive development in this stage is extremely rapid. They are moving very, very quickly. Excuse me. They are learning from their environment. They are learning to categorize information by taste, touch, smell. They learn familiar objects. They learn familiar people. Their information is gathered through perception. It is crucial to the gathering of their information that they go through 3 conceptual developments. One's called object permanence. The other is causality, and listen to how I pronounce that. It's causality, not casualty, okay? In the term of speech pathology and in psychology, it's causality, and means ends. Object permanence is the idea that something exists even though I cannot see it. It's why babies cry when they drop their binky, and you give it back to them, and then they drop their binky, and they don't know that it's where it is, and they cry again. When mommy leaves the room, the reason they cry is they have developed the idea that mommy does exist. And if I cry, she will come back. You can pass a newborn baby around a room unaware that mommy is a person or a thing. They don't cry. As a child starts to develop object permanence, their desire to stay with that familiar person, that familiar object, is because of the development of object permanence, that they know that that person exists. And when they're with somebody strange or different, they're like, nope, wait a second, that's not who I was waiting with, not who I wanted to be with. Where is that person? I know they're still here. And it's that idea that they are seeking out familiarity. Causality is the idea of one thing causes another. So I drop my bottle off the high chair, mommy bends it over and picks it up. I laugh. I drop my bottle off the high chair, mommy bends over and picks it up. It's the idea of mommy comes at me with a spoonful of mashed peas and I don't want to eat it, so I turn my head. That I don't have to eat the peas. Means ends is the way to achieve a goal. Mommy put her keys in her bag because I was playing with them. And I went for the keys. She takes her bag and puts it on the counter. Means end says I climb on the chair to get the purse, to get the keys. So during the sensory-motor period, they're going through this process of conceptual development through object permanence, causality, and means ends. They start to understand that things exist when they cannot be seen, that one thing causes another. There's a cause and effect in life, and that I can set a goal to reach an end. Behaviors that they learn by, these are the ways babies learn. They learn through imitation. So yeah, I take a newborn baby and you watch daddy interact with the newborn baby. One of the things you often see them do is play with their mouth. They'll stick out their tongue, baby sticks out their tongue. Daddy opens his mouth, baby opens their mouth. They learn to imitate very, very young. Play, a child's work is their play. And so between the ages of birth to 2, you will see play as a very purposeful activity in which they learn and develop. And certainly in the sensory motor period, communication is developed both through imitation and play, but it is its own entity in and of itself, and that just physically children are more able to communicate as they grow in age from birth to 2. Play is a child's work. Children who are proficient at play tend to develop language more quickly than children who are more rigid or more formal in their thinking. So children who can do imaginary or symbolic play tend to have higher language skills and more advanced language skills than those children who tend to not have developed the idea of play well. Now, on the next few slides, I'm going to just let you look through those on your own in the reading assignment for the week, because you don't need to specifically know all the things that are happening at each age. This is just to give you an idea of what is happening. It's not something that you're going to be tested on. It's just to give you a general sense of what this birth to 2 sensory motor period looks like. So at the outset, children are born very egocentric, with very little sense of difference between themselves and the world. They cry and have their needs met. They can see, they can hold on to things, they suck, they eat, they sleep. We don't see play, nor do we see any communicative intent at this place. They're not crying to achieve a purpose. They're crying as a reflex. From 1 to 4 months old, remember what I said when we started, is all of these age ranges are extremely general, and every child develops individually, and what's true for one child is not necessarily true for another. These are generalities. But from 1 to 4 months, we start to see them, they are aware. They're aware of people and objects in their environment. They'll turn to sound. They continue to be extremely self-centered little beings. They will imitate. They laugh, they smile, which is that beginning of communication with the outside world. Now imagine a baby that doesn't laugh and doesn't smile and doesn't recognize objects or people. Can you see how the communication breakdown can already start to occur? So 4 to 8 months old, object permanence, that idea that things exist even when I can't see them. It starts off with like, if I can see part of the object, I know it exists. And then if I can see the place where you put the object, I know it exists. And then the object seems to keep coming back, and I get the idea that it sticks around. Object permanence doesn't just happen at 4 to 8 months. It evolves over time in the sensory motor period. They're still completely egocentric, but by this point they are moving, okay? So they're starting to move around their world, crawl, roll, sit up. um, and grasp things a little more purposefully. So that enhances their ability to learn from their environment. We're now adding to their perceptions. We're adding to their ability to seek out new things and new objects. 8 to 12 months, they start to become purposefully curious. We'll start to see their first meaningful words here. They have very intentional behavior. They will purposefully go over and pat the doggy. They will purposefully drop things to see if you'll pick them up. You start to see purpose in what they do. And again, their motor skills continue to move them forward. From 12 to 18 months, object permanence develops pretty solidly. And this is that stage where they want to show you and they want you to show them. They want to imitate, but they want to figure it out all by themselves. It's the beginning of the I do it stage. They are minor birds when it comes to imitation, and they will learn many new words before 18 months, and their language is starting to explode. And between 18 to 24 months, which we call the end of the sensory motor period, we have a child who thinks. We have a child who understands that things exist. They can solve problems. They understand how to set goals and to achieve a task. They have deferred imitation. In other words, you show them how to open that door today, tomorrow they're going to go open it themselves. You show them, they watch often enough how daddy starts the car with the keys. They will take those keys and go try and start their own little plastic car. They watch mommy brush her hair in the morning. They will brush their own hair or brush the hair of the dog. So deferred imitation is, again, another way that they're exploring and learning from their environment. They are still very concrete. Their distance in learning from real objects is not significant yet. They still function with the very real object. So the word apple may not mean something to them. A picture of an apple may not mean something to them, but the object apple does. In private speech, which you'll see start to develop at this stage too, is you'll see babies starting to talk even when there's no one around. It's directed, or at least research seems to think that it's directed at guiding them through solving problems or guiding them through interactions with objects. So you'll see babies babbling or using few words with a dog or talking to a stuffed animal or talking to a book. And this is that private speech where they start to examine their world intrinsically, like on their own. Okay, so that's it for this evening. Have a great night, and we will see you next time.